Writing process in a nutshell. In this lesson, we will learn how to outline a paper, chapter or section, how to write a section or a chapter with sample of a simple section with 4 components, and then we will also learn how to apply the stitching technique for logical continuity. Prepare an outline with main headers and subheaders. A 2-level outline consisting of one header followed by a subheader is sufficient for most essays. All essays, of course, must have a title. For example, how African wildlife can be saved with XYZ management technique. For example, let's start with a header, the historical background. Under this header, let's have 2 subheaders. Subheader 1, up until 20th century. The second subheader, since 1900s. The second header, what is XYZ management technique? Third header, saving the big hunt animals with XYZ management technique. And under this header, we will have our first subheader, elephants, followed by another subheader, lions, and any other subheader, subtopic we'd like to have. Header 4, responsibility of the United Nations, followed by the first subheader, existing legislation, what needs to be done, and case studies, followed by our 5th header, conclusions. At a minimum, each section should have the following elements. The opening statement. This should be a mini summary of what you are trying to say in that section, followed by supporting facts and arguments, and a concluding statement, of course. You can also include all kinds of supporting materials like photos, diagrams, flowcharts, graphs, web links, video clips, etc., whatever the case may be. Here is an example of a section or chapter consisting of these 4 basic elements, components. 1, title of the section or chapter. 2, opening statement. 3, supporting facts. 4, conclusion, the concluding statement. Title: Responsibility of the United Nations to save African wildlife. Please note that even in this title, there's an implicit relationship between 2 variables. If the UN acts responsibly is the independent variable, then the African wildlife might be saved, which is the dependent variable, because one depends on the other. Here is the opening statement. To save African wildlife, passing UN resolutions is not enough. There should also be a budget dedicated to monitoring violations, enforcing penalties, and adopting the XYZ management technique. State your facts with statistics and survey results, if possible. Provide all the source references you can, either as a footnote or endnote. For example, what has been the damage for the absence of such enforcement? Did other regions fare any better in terms of preserving their wildlife? How is the situation in India, for example, or Latin America, etc.? How does XYZ management technique compare to the other management techniques? Concluding statement. Without such robust and dedicated support, Africa is expected to lose 8% of its protected species with every passing year. Quote an academic study if you can. As we have shown, by adopting the XYZ management technique, African countries can save the following species. Just give a list and summarize the facts. The United Nations must take the issue by the horns and do what's necessary to preserve one of the most important natural resources in the world, the African wildlife. Make sure all sentences, paragraphs, and sections follow each other logically and support each other's assertion. To create a sense of logical continuity, use a word or phrase in the last sentence of a paragraph in the first sentence of the next paragraph, as shown on the right here. Last sentence of paragraph 1. Member countries must pay their annual dues to support discretionary funds. Here is the first sentence of the next paragraph. To maintain a healthy discretion fund, however, is not the end of it, but just the beginning. As you can see, the phrase discretionary fund is used in both paragraphs, stitching them together nicely and creating a sense of logical unity, continuity, and flow. In this lesson, we learned how to outline a paper, chapter, or section. We learned how to write a section or a chapter, how to write a simple section with 4 components: title, opening statement, supporting facts or arguments, and concluding statement. And lastly, we also learned how to apply the stitching technique for logical continuity. Questions? What are the 4 basic and indispensable components of an essay or a section, chapter? The second question, what is the stitching technique? Why do we use it? The answers are in the answer sheet attached to this lesson as a PDF file. See you in the next lesson, folks.